All right, hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the template of the gangster film genre, and we're going to be referring to the Rough Guide of Gangster Movies. Again, there does exist a template because in order to make a gangster film, they're not going to be starting from zero, right? So it's pretty much a copy and paste. The template or the guideline is more of the skeleton. Of course, different gangster movies build on top of this skeleton, but for the most part, this is what directors follow when they're doing their interpretation of a gangster film, right? Gangster movies have existed for as long as Hollywood and cinema itself. That's because it started around the same time, right? The early 1900s, 1920s, and it's a Hollywood staple. That's why the gangster genre is considered to be an American genre. We're going to be looking at when the template started. So this pretty much started during the golden age of film in 1930s to 1933. Studios pretty much greenlit more than 60 gangster projects. The gangster films that started the gangster template or the outline are Little Caesars 1930s, Public Enemy 1931, and Scarface 1932. It's pretty much a rise and fall narrative, and we're going to be going over this paragraph in more detail. And of course, we have the fall, right? All right, so let's get started. Films pretty much start with a small-time hood and the best friend. So on the left, we have Public Enemy 1930 compared to 1983 Scarface, right? So these films have more than 53 years apart, but they still pretty much follow the same template, even many years after, right? I could have compared 1932 Scarface to 1983 Scarface, but I didn't want to make it a compare and contrast. So that's the reason why I picked 1930s Public Enemy, right? So it's not really a compare and contrast. I really want to highlight the template that was used in the 1930s and is still used today. It's been used in the 40s, 50s, 60s, different decades, and it's still used. Then the story pretty much talks about the ambition of the hood wanting to rise through the ranks of the mob, right? So it's usually they rise and defeat the neighborhood gangster, elevate through the ranks to the next boss, right? So we see that in again 1930s Public Enemy. Same thing with any other gangster movie that you could compare it to. So here we have Scarface as he elevated through the ranks to meet the boss. And of course, because of the young hood's hunger and ambition, the veteran boss becomes a little worried that he might get overthrown. Due to this worry, the bosses try to sabotage the up and coming hood, right? So on the left, 1930s, we see how the gangster is pretty much set up by another boss. And on the right-hand side, we see how the old boss pretty much told detectives of the police department on Scarface as a way to slow down his progress. They also made an attempt on his life. And of course, we see that the attempt from the veteran boss to the young hood fails. And that leads us to the next step, which is revenge from the hood to the old boss. Here we see how in the 1930s version Public Enemy, the young hood pretty much gives the option to the old boss to leave town. And this is pretty much publicized. So on the right, we see how Scarface, the young hood, pretty much confirms that the old boss had him set up. And in this adaptation of the gangster film, the young hood pretty much disposes of the old boss. So as we continue, we're in the step where the hood becomes the boss. Just like his trajectory was a rapid growth, we're going to start to see the rapid decline. So we plateau for a little bit. This is a step of the high life where the young hood, now boss, has the girls, the money, the power, and now it's the beginning of the end. It usually starts through psychological flaws. Some of these flaws include anxiety, jealousy, paranoia. So on the left, this is caused through jealousy of the hood and his best friend, and on the right, the gangster's decline is paranoia and anxiety that somebody's coming after him. Another thing that leads to further decline of the boss is the loss of the best friend. So as they were rising, the best friend was the shield that pretty much protected the young hood from any other rival groups. But as he loses the best friend, he is now open to attacks. And again, what further contributes to the decline of the gangster is being compromised by a woman, right? So women in the gangster genre are usually seen as something negative. So now that they've been compromised, we're in the plot of the movie where now he's vulnerable to attack by both law enforcement, government, or other rival criminal groups in Public Enemy. He's open for attack by law enforcement. On the right-hand side, he is vulnerable through other rival gangs that enter his home. And now we've reached the end of the template where the gangster has met his demise, right? So living by the sword and dying by the sword. So on the left-hand side, the gangster is shot, and on the right-hand side, the gangster is also shot. And again, this is a template for the gangster film genre, right? You can compare this template to other films like Menace to Society, Blood In, Blood Out, maybe La Loca. Feel free to leave a comment or a question, and please let me know what you think. Thank you so much.